Hi, everyone, and welcome to another Home Tech. I'm Seth Johnson, and as usual, joined by Jason Griffin. Jason, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great, Seth. How are you?
Doing well. It's been a long week, but here we are, as we are every Wednesday, sitting down for another Home Tech Live, and this week, an awesome interview. I think this is going to be one of those everybody talks about.
I agree. Yeah, we had a great conversation with Richard Berrie from iHummingbird, and longtime, or regular listeners to our show, I should say, are probably familiar with that name. They may have read about him in CE Pro, had an article recently, and we were trying to get Richard on back in February, but things came up and we had to reschedule. So I was really happy to have him on. iHummingbird is a unique business model. I mean, he's an integrator, a home technology professional, but he's really coming at the market from a different angle. We won't dive into it too much here because obviously we'll encourage you to stay tuned for the interview, but really a business model that's focused on doing things a different way and really leveraging some of these consumer products like Nest and Sonos and Apple products and this sort of thing to really build a profitable and successful home technology installation company. So really enjoyed learning about some of the things that he is doing differently and how that's working out for him.
Yeah. If we talked about the HD-based T apocalypse a couple of weeks back, I think he was preaching about the impending integrator apocalypse, where everybody goes out of business, and what he sees the industry kind of like panning out. And I've got to agree with him on many things. He's preaching what I've been preaching for the number of years now, and I think we're on the same page fully. I'd be curious after the episode aired to hear what other people think and what they would like to if they have a different opinion. I'd definitely be interested in hearing them and talking to them about it. And to do that, you can actually reach out to us on Twitter at HomeTech Podcast, or over on our website. We've got a nice little form there, HomeTech.fm/contact, right? Is that it?
Feedback.
Yep, that's it.
So yeah, we'd encourage that. I think this interview is bound to stir up some questions or commentary, and like you said, we'd love to hear from anybody who has any thoughts they want to share on it. So be sure to stay tuned for that, as we usually do. We're going to jump into a handful of news stories here before we get to that interview. Before we jump into the news, though, wanted to thank, as we always do, our patrons of the show. If you're interested in learning how you can support our efforts here on the Home Tech Podcast, you can head over to HomeTech.fm/support. Once again, that's HomeTech.fm/support. And that's where you can learn a little bit about becoming a patron of the show. And that's a way that you can support what we're doing here for as little as $1 a month. We've had a lot of people do that. We really do truly appreciate it and want to encourage more people to do that. Part of the benefit too, we want to reiterate, is you get access to our private Slack channel, which is a great chat room full of very engaged conversation, and we have a lot of people in there who are regularly participating throughout the week in various smart home and home technology conversations. So would welcome more people to come on board with that as well.
Absolutely. And I want to echo as well. Again, thank you to our patrons. You guys definitely rock, and you have definitely made the show possible, and especially the live show, which I forgot to tweet about and make sure that people are aware that we're live right now. So I'm doing that as I talk.
Multitasking.
Definitely want to, trying to. Definitely want to thank everyone who has who's made the show possible by helping out and contributing just a little bit here and there every month.
Absolutely.
We definitely appreciate it.
Well, let's jump into the news here. We got a few stories we're going to cover. Number one, top of our list here, is a big HDMI story that broke this week, and we talk about HDMI and the woes that it causes a lot here on the podcast. I know it's definitely a love-hate relationship for most of us. It's technology that enables some pretty sophisticated things on the video side, but does cause us a lot of headaches. And I'm afraid, I think the general fear is that this may be another one of those stories. Ultimately, time will tell. They've got the new HDMI 2.1 specification put out. So there's some excitement around this thing because, the spec has HDMI to a point where it can transmit 48 gigabytes per second. Now, that's a huge number if you think about it, because really we've had a lot of conversations recently in the industry about how HDMI is really even struggling to hit that 18 gigs per second, which is what 4K, 60 hertz, 444 color space. Not to get too technical, but that's what that specification would require from a bandwidth
We've already
perspective.
gone technical on us, yeah.
Yeah. And so now we're talking 48 gigs per second, which is a huge number. I think it's got a lot of people scratching their heads. How are they getting that much bandwidth through copper? And so there's a lot of conversation, a lot of commentary in the particular CE Pro article that I read about that. And should we really be looking to fiber instead of trying to, push copper this far? And interesting conversation. There was some question and commentary in the article as well itself from Chris Pasqualino, who's the HDMI forum chairman, about a new, active cables being required after a certain length. And he says he doesn't expect significant growth in the footprint of the cable. Connectors will be the same. I think there is some skepticism about how thick the cable is going to have to be to handle that bandwidth and stuff. So a lot of questions here. I think it's a pretty impressive spec on paper, but I think the execution is really going to be the big question mark.
This is one of those things where I'm like, I know we can do it, but should we? Like,
right.
8K in the home, is that what we're seriously worried about? I mean, how close do you need to get to your giant television to I mean, I can't comprehend this. Like, you've got to get within like a foot of your TV for it to notice a difference on 8K. This is crazy. And on top of that, I think we were talking about this before, and you said this. Can't we just perfect 4K first?
Yeah.
There seems to be like a different standard every day about 4K, and we still haven't hit like the 444 that everybody, like this gold standard of 4K that everybody wants, the 4:4:4. That evidently is a lie. It's not even something that's ever going to happen. The only thing that outputs that are some menus on Blu-ray on the super high definition Blu-ray discs. So I'm wondering, like, why? I mean, this has got to be like 10 years out, at least, maybe 20, before we start seeing something like this. And I don't know, I guess TV companies just need bigger numbers to put on their television every year. And this is what we're going to end up with.
Yeah. I think that, I suppose on the bright side, it gives you a lot of headroom. If you're not worried about 8K and you really just want to have the bandwidth for 4K, having that extra headroom and capability is a good thing. But, the reliability concerns are always top of mind for the professional who's installing this stuff. Every piece of equipment in the chain to leverage 2.1 is going to have to be 2.1 compatible. So there was another quote from this Chris Pasqualino from HDMI. And I'm going to quote this directly. He says, there is some margin in the system and the reliability will be good. There will be a short early adopter phase before we see a very quick ramp up to a stable ecosystem. And so I read that and just shudder a little bit and think about what a very quick ramp up to a stable ecosystem actually means to the companies who are out there installing and servicing and warrantying systems that are built on HDMI.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it just brings back those like horrible memories of the first like 1080p days of HDMI and how bad that was of a transition. I mean, even 4K hasn't been smooth, right? I mean, we've got all these weird standards, some with HDR, some without. And then as Greg is pointing out in the chat, he had a client ask him to upgrade a video distribution system to 4K and how costly that's going to be, because you're not just changing out TVs. Like, you're changing out all of the supporting equipment all the way down the line, and in this case, it may be running new type of cable.
Yep. So pretty big transition, and definitely one we'll keep an eye on. Let's move here to the next story. Netflix penetration into U.S. homes has actually surpassed DVRs. This was a story out of Fierce Cable, and really headline grabbed my attention. Obviously, we all who are working in technology, or even if you're just into it as an enthusiast, and we intuitively know that Netflix is very big and growing in popularity, and these sort of over-the-top streaming services in general are really taking off. But the fact that actually Netflix now has overtaken DVRs in the home for cable and satellite providers is pretty surprising.
Yeah, and okay, so bring this back to the previous conversation. Do you think that integrators will figure out how to get a massive 8K system installed in someone's house, or Netflix will make their app work with 8K first. I'm betting that it's going to be the latter rather than the former, and it's going to be more reliable. And I mean, it's going to be everywhere, as you can see. I mean, this is something that they have just gone out there and put their app on every single device they possibly could, and they've done a good job at it, and gotten in more homes part of the market than DVRs themselves. This is kind of crazy just to even think about and wrap your head around.
Yeah. Now, to be fair, this is based off of, one research company had these findings. It looks like the Leichtman Research Group says the company found that 54% of adults report subscribing to Netflix versus 53% who say they have a DVR. So not talking about a big difference here. Still an attention-grabbing headline, and I think just speaks to the, like you said, the popularity of these services, and I think it's perfectly valid to point that back to a conversation about HDMI and bandwidth, and should we be running fiber in the home or copper? And really, at the end of the day, I think you and I agree that ultimately where this all heads is packets on the network and apps on your TV. And I think that a lot of those conversations about, fiber or copper in the home will still be valid to a certain extent, in the sense that you've got to get the data to the TV somehow. Even if you're using Netflix on an Apple TV, that video still has to come over the network. So yes, infrastructure is important, but I think, I guess I hope, maybe it's wishful thinking, that a lot of these concerns about how do we transport, 18 gigs a second over, 200 feet in a 5,000 square foot home. I think those concerns are going to be fewer and further between as we get into the future of where this is all going.
I sure hope so. I mean, it gets kind of crazy. Considering like the most popular, most powerful video distribution systems we have now aren't even HDMI networks. They're Cat5 Ethernet networks with like just add power, and there's a number of other ones where they convert HDMI signal over to IP, put it down like a network pipe, and then some other receiver on the other end says, "Oh, that's what I want to watch," and picks it up. Like that's crazy to like think about how that's going to work with a massive 2.1 8K system. I just, times are changing, and it's going to move towards apps faster than I think integrators realize.
Yeah.
So speaking of apps, there's Netflix is doing well, but Pandora doesn't seem to be able to keep up. This is a news story here about Pandora finally getting the on-demand music streaming service like Spotify, Apple Music, pretty much everyone else in the game, right? Like Amazon, Google, YouTube, even like Pandora, they're giant. What happened to them?
Yeah. I wonder. I honestly, when I heard about this new feature coming out, it's called Pandora Premium. I kind of just reflected for a minute and realized that I hadn't spent any time really in the past thinking about, why doesn't Pandora have this functionality? I think Pandora was able to stand on its own 2 feet as a different type of service. They were a first mover, and I think they're still pretty popular for what they do. I would argue as good or maybe better than anyone is the music genome and how they're able to blend different styles together of music and make suggestions to you. And I still use Pandora pretty regularly when I'm sitting at my desk working and like it. But I think that speaks to the fact that really this whole other category of music streaming apps was developing and being born in that time when Pandora, I don't know if they just got comfortable or what, but now they're kind of coming out with this Spotify Premium service, which has similar offerings to what a Spotify or Apple Music would from a functionality standpoint. And I think a lot of what people are saying in the press, I agree with, is, well, maybe they might have missed the bus on this one, because people don't necessarily think about Pandora in that way, and they're not really doing anything different or unique at this point. Spotify and Apple Music really have a lot of the mind share when it comes to that sort of functionality. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of success Pandora can have with this service. They've got a very large user base that they can market to, and so that'll help them. But again, I don't see what they're doing here that's all that unique. It's about the same price. $10 a month to have your on-demand functionality. So nothing, earth-shaking or different really about that offering.
I think they were touting I think you mentioned it, the music genome project that they kind of initiated, and basically using their knowledge of what you have liked in the past to make custom playlists for you, which is kind of what Pandora is anyway. So I don't really know what they're going to be doing differently other than charging people $10 a month for fancy custom playlists and I guess getting on-demand music, but whatever.
Yeah, no, I guess I could see that. I mean, like Spotify has playlists that are curated, and of course Spotify can do some of that auto suggesting that the music genome and Pandora are really about. But I guess that's where Pandora is going to stake their claim, is on their proprietary music genome, and that they're going to argue that it's better at knowing what it is that you like, and they can put together playlists. And the difference now versus what it was doing before is, of course, that you can jump through those playlists and hit songs on demand, or, I guess put them on repeat, whatever it is. So I see it. I think it's cool. I just think at this point, a lot of people are already married to their streaming service of choice. And I think these services tend to be pretty sticky, because once you've used one for a while, you build up all your playlists, you get comfortable with it. I think it's a hard sell to get somebody who's like a hardcore Spotify user who's been paying for the service for over a year, for example. There's nothing that compelling about Pandora's new service that's going to make them switch over.
Right. I don't know about you, but Pandora has been like, if I went to anybody's home, and we kind of skew older clientele here, but if I went towards anybody's home, they more often than not, I don't think I ever ran across anybody that didn't have a Pandora account. And I know that's like stateside thing, but how about you? Is that your experiences?
Yeah, I would agree.
So, I mean, they've got a big user base here.
It's kind of the go-to, like for us at least, it's like the go-to when if we're explaining a Sonos type of system or any sort of streaming audio, house audio solution. It's like the go-to that you first describe to, maybe a client who's not savvy to it, is like, well, do you listen to Pandora? Yes. Okay. Well, this allows you to listen to Pandora throughout your whole home. Oh, okay. I get it. It's kind of it's the default. So I would agree with you, at least here in the States, hugely popular, very, very widespread and common, even amongst people who otherwise aren't super technical.
Right. I mean, it's one of those, like, I don't know. I stopped listening to Pandora because of their insistent that on every single channel that I had, that the Somewhere Over the Rainbow by that Israel Kamakawikiole guy.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Did not matter. I could be listening to like a rock channel and that song would come on, and it's like, we just turned it off. I mean, we're done with Pandora.
That did it for you, huh?
That was the straw, unfortunately, that broke the camel's back with me. Beautiful song.
That's funny.
Just don't want to hear it every other song.
Yeah, just don't want to hear it on my hard rock station.
Right.
All right, well, we got one more story here we want to kick around a little bit before we jump into our interview with Richard Berrie from iHummingbird, and that is a story that just broke today out of the ASEAN conference and OneVision Resources, who we've had Joey Kolchinski on the show a couple of times, and really interesting company doing some cool things in the service space. You go check them out if you're not familiar. Just launched an skill where you can actually summon tech support from OneVision Resources just simply by asking Alexa to have a tech support rep give you a call, and they'll give you a call back within 30 minutes. And so there's a very cool demo video on the CE Pro article. We'll link to that. Go check it out. It gives you an idea for what that's about. And I think it's a really interesting offering. There was an article, I think we may have even touched on it, that Joey did last week that talked about where this voice control and services may intersect. And I guess that was a tease of things to come. So this was I thought a pretty cool story and brings to mind a lot of possibilities.
Yeah, this is genius. I mean, I wish I had thought of this, honestly. Like, this is a great idea to sit there and yell at the lady in the tube, as we can't call her by her name, Jason. Greg is saying you woke us up in the chat
worst.
room.
I'm the worst about that. I am so sorry, Greg.
It's all right. We'll filter it out for the main show, and he can re-listen and then beep it or something.
see if it happens. Yep.
But going back to the story, this is absolutely genius. And I wish I had thought of it. To have this device installed in the house, say, "Oh, I need tech support," and have someone just call you. I mean, that's so smart. Such a great marketing thing, and probably didn't take him too much trouble to develop. But man, this is just so smart, so smart by OneVision.
Yeah, I think it was a really cool idea, and like I said, I think it calls to mind a lot of possibilities and just a good thought exercise to think about where these AI assistants and voice control platforms will intersect with the world of professional services. We obviously spend a lot of time as an industry talking and thinking about voice control in the context of integration and how we tie it in with our lighting and our shades, but I don't think enough people have really been thinking about or paying attention to where this converges, like I said, with professional services. And I think this is a great idea, and we really look forward to seeing, how this is adopted by the industry.
Yeah, and I think this ties in perfectly with the conversation we had with Richard tonight, because this is service focused. Like OneVision is a service. Like you can outsource your customer service to like tier 1 customer service to OneVision, and they can take care of all the little small issues for you before you even hear them, and then you can take care of the big ones and doing the rest of your job. But I think that's going to tie in well with our interview tonight, because Richard's company is completely based around service, and man, this is really cool. This is just a genius idea. I cannot express how big of an idea this is. It's just so smart, so smart. Wish I had thought of it.
Well, I think you're right. I think it's a perfect segue into our conversation with Richard Berrie from iHummingbird. Like you said, a lot of what he's doing, primarily what he's doing, is really centered around service. He is obviously selling some product, but really it's about the relationships, the level of service, the reliability, just that overall customer experience. Really, really important for the industry. And I think Richard is doing some really cool things that anybody who's interested in home technology, or especially those of us who do it as a profession, can learn a thing or two from this conversation. So without further ado, let's jump into our conversation here once again with Richard Berrie from iHummingbird. Hey, Richard, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm fantastic, Jason. Thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, we appreciate you taking the time. I know we tried to get you on before, and things just didn't pan out with schedules. So we're happy to have you on and look forward to our conversation. I think you and I and Seth have had a chance to discuss some of the unique things that you're doing in the smart home, and I think it's really an interesting approach, and I look forward to sharing that with our audience. But before we get started with that specifically, why don't you give a quick personal introduction and maybe talk about some of your industry background as well?
I'd love to. Thanks for the opportunity. Really, where it started is sort of, I guess I was probably about 10 or 12 years old, and just was fascinated with audio. And at the time it was audio, there really wasn't video. And started collecting records, and then collecting really cool amplifiers and receivers, and had my own equalizer. And then in high school I became a DJ, and then in college. And in high school I started being introduced to computers. When you had, this is going to date me, but when you had the punch cards and the yellow tape, I don't know if you remember that. Well, you guys don't remember it, but you might have seen the history books. so that's how I kind of, and I've always, what's interesting, I was never a nerd in the sense of wanting to know how things worked. I was more interested in what they could do for you. So it was always like, how can I make my life easier and cooler with this stuff? Not so much how does it, like opening up the chassis and trying to figure out how to build them. And so when we got into the PC age, sort of like the early mid 80s, in fact, I had an Apple IIc, and then I had a PC, which was, $5,000 for like 16, bytes of memory. At that point, again, I was really using it as a tool. I've always used music as a way to, enjoy music, and computers as a tool to be more efficient. I did have to start opening up the chassis to increase the RAM and the processors, and learned a lot. But still, it was frustrating because I just wanted it to work, and that's really my background. So, and then take me into being a young adult. I actually started buying more and more better quality equipment. Started buying things like magnaplanar and spectral amps and preamps and shotgun interconnects. And I don't know if your audience knows what this stuff is, but it's high end 2-channel audio. And that was really my thing, and loved music. And then I had the first Lexicon CPU1 processor, which was a 4-channel surround sound processor. Believe it or not, there was no center channel. There was 2 fronts, left and right, and 2 rears. And I had a 1200 laser disc collection. And so I was really a customer. I mean, I was a customer at Lyric Hi-Fi in New York City. And then when I moved to Florida, I hired some local integrators to do my home. And then I built my own home, and I had an integrator build from the point of the slab. I had Meridian surround sound system. I had a Zenith projector with the Fruja line doubler, Stewart screen. And it was just as a customer. But the problem was I never felt that those guys could finish the job. It was like 90% done, but it was never completed, and it was always problems. And I always had to figure out for myself what the problem was and to fix it. So that's sort of a precursor to me getting to the industry. And then my neighbor actually opened up a integration company, and we got to know each other. And he saw what a nut I was for this stuff, and he wanted me to join him as a partner, and I did. And that was in 2003. And we were partners for a short period of time. And then I went out on my own and started a company called Simple Solutions Digital, and ran that for 6 years. Then we merged with a large company out of West Palm Beach. And then after being there for a couple of years, I just saw, this is in 2012, in 2014, and 6 months before 2014, I started to see what was happening with the iPhone and how much it was taking over, and how people were just using it constantly for everything. And of course, Sonos had been out, and I'd been a Sonos dealer for quite a while, and Control 4 and Crestron. And I just saw how things were getting simpler and simpler, and the Nest had been introduced a couple years earlier. And I decided that was where the trend was going. Before, Google paid $3.2 billion for Nest. And so I said, you know what? This is where things are going. It's not going towards Crestron. It's not going towards Control 4. It's really going towards these really best-in-breed products that are consumer-friendly, that are do-it-yourself type products. But I knew people didn't want to do themselves. And so I started iHummingbird in February 2014 with the concept of your iPhone, your Android, controlling your home, starting with Sonos and Apple TV and Nest thermostat. And then, of course, the Ring doorbell and other things started really jumping on board. And it was a pretty cool ride. At the time, the Nest Cam, which was drop cam, was a cool design, great interface. And that's how iHummingbird got started.
Awesome. Well, yeah, you definitely had that vision, it sounds like, at the right time. And like you said, it really, Google's purchase of Nest there was a really kind of a watershed moment in the smart home, I feel like. And obviously a lot has developed and changed since then. But the one thing that hasn't is that the industry is evolving. And I think that it's cool to hear about your approach. And so let's dive in and talk a little more specifically about some of the things that iHummingbird is doing. One of them I noticed is very uncommon in the home technology, professional install space, and that is prominently displaying pricing on your website. And so give us a breakdown of how that's been received. What are some of your most popular offerings as well that you display on your site?
Okay, well, just another little piece of background. When we first started iHummingbird, it was really a concept of how do I bring the Apple Store and that a better experience in the Apple Store to people's homes? Because I had, over a 10-year history of going to high-end net worth individuals and providing them with a level of service in their homes that they enjoyed. And I had the experience of going to the Apple Store, and it was just a zoo. You go, there's 300 people milling around. You have to make an appointment online or on the phone, typically online. And then you have to get there, and then you have to wait, and then you have all these people milling around you. So I said, there's got to be a better way. So we started actually sending people out, myself primarily, to my customers' homes and teaching them how to integrate and basically sync all of their smart devices together, which at the time was their iPhone, their iPad, and their computer, and the cloud. So that really started to take off, but there wasn't revenue-wise. I couldn't create enough revenue doing these 1-2 hour service calls. I had to sell products. So I started selling, Apple and TVs and Apple Extreme routers, everything to keep it simple as possible. Sonos and Nest and things like that. So once we got past the just Kickstarter stage and developed the website, I said one of the key elements of what we're trying to create and what we're trying to the brand that we're trying to create is that you can get started with home automation and build a relationship with me for somewhere in the $100 to $400 range. So whereas before the model was you meet with a customer, you do a survey of their home, you go back and you spend a day or 2 or 3 creating a proposal, hours and hours. Then you either email it to them or you try to get another meeting. And all that time is wasted time, and they don't even know who you are at that point. I mean, you met them for an hour, 2 hours at most, and you've done nothing for them other than creating this proposal. And they've got 2 or 3 other people they're getting proposals from, and it's just a numbers game. For me, it was for $99 at the time, or if they want something installed, I can actually have a relationship with this customer. I can actually provide a benefit to them, whether it was getting their iPhone up and running, working, whether it was putting a Nest thermostat or an Apple TV in, and kind of really spending a few hours with them and showing them the quality of the work we do and the attention to detail and how I can improve their lives. And by that point, once I was in the door that way, they were in love with me, and with all just a little boastful there. And it was a no-brainer. They're like, well, I need this. I need a TV, or I want the soundbar. I want you to do, and it was just, I wasn't competing any longer with these $15,000 proposals and other integrators. I had a relationship with the customer. So I transferred that to my website, and by putting in, no lost leaders. I mean, these are reasonable prices, $400 installed for a Nest thermostat, $400 for an Apple TV, and so on. People could see, well, you know what, I can dip my toe in the pond and not, and give this a shot. And it's been great for marketing. I wouldn't say we have very many customers that call up and just want a single Nest thermostat or a single Apple TV. Most of the time now, customers are calling and they want a whole system, but they understand that the cost isn't what they anticipated it was, or they thought it might be.
Right. I've got to say, I'm on your website right now, and we'll put a link to it in the show notes. But it's a very clean website, and the thing that stands out to me most is, you're not promoting like brands that no one's heard of before. These are Sonos, Apple TV, Harmony, wireless networks, and you've got a picture of the Apple airport there. Lutron, which is probably the least recognized brand outside of our industry. But I mean, this is all stuff that people are looking for and recognize and want. And it's laid out in a very approachable way. Very, very impressive.
Thank you. Well, that was critical. I mean, we wanted to ride the wave of the brand recognition with Apple and with Nest and Google and with, August and Harmony at the time. And in fact, our logo was created to associate with Apple being iHummingbird. So iPhone, iHummingbird, so forth. We just felt like instead of having to introduce customers into the world of the third, the sort of private independent integration companies or manufacturers of these products that they never heard of and have to sell on that, or even worse yet, with all due respect to some of these big integration companies or home automation companies, who these customers had bad experiences with them. So I was trying to say, look, we can do it a different way. We can get you 90% or 80% of the way there with half the cost and no headaches. And the key was, I know that I didn't have to pay a salesperson and I didn't have to pay for a service department to maintain these systems and to get them sold and into people's homes. And so even though I was working on much less margin, my net margins were staying the same or even better. And my reviews from the customers were through the roof because I would install systems that didn't need to be serviced, that customers intrinsically knew how to use, more or less, that worked reliably. and that all their friends and neighbors had. So the selling was easy, installation was easy, no service issues, smaller margins, but no cost involved in the sales. So the net was the same or better.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. And you've touched on this a couple of times. This word I'd like to point out, relationships. It's what this business and what this industry is all about, and making relationships, between our manufacturers and vendors, but also amazingly with our customers. And it's really interesting to hear you talk about your business model being centered around that relationship rather than centered around a specific product or a specific way of doing business. And I think, let's say way of it, like product, putting in like only high-end lighting control system is what I mean by that. Not like a business model geared around solely pre-wiring production homes. Like this is out there, but it doesn't really, at the end of the day, it really doesn't help the person that's bought a pre-wired home if there's no relationship there between the integrator and the customer.
That's exactly. I mean, you nailed it, Seth. I mean, look. What's ironic about this whole thing is, in the 10 years I was in business before iHummingbird, it was pulling teeth to get, to compete, to get builders, and to get some of the high rise and MDUs, and to get the large country clubs and stuff. Now I've got them flooding at me because they understand the concept. They love the concept. The reviews have just, been wonderful. And with this small, relatively low-key concept, the builders get it and they want it. And they're like, this enhances our home, and it's using all of the key brand names and things that that our customers are asking for. And so from that, we've literally landed 800 high-rise units, 3 buildings, that 650 of the 800 are getting a developer package, a $5,000 developer package. You can do the numbers, but it's pretty substantial. And then we have, of course, an exclusive access to each one of those customers, starting, units starting at, $1 million, $1.5 million up to $6 million. We have access to 650 or 800 of those. 650 already getting a $5,000 package. So, and on top of that, we're branding ourselves to the point where we're going to be in that building providing a concierge level tech support service that's being paid by the condo association. That gives us, almost full-time access to every one of those customers.
Wow. Well, that's really great. And I think it lends proof to this theory you hear tossed around a lot that, we can leverage sort of entry-level consumer-focused technology products as a way to open the door into larger projects and upsells. And I think a lot of times, people maybe hear that theory bantered around and they don't know if it's, how much truth there necessarily is to that. And I think your model is living proof of it, which actually calls to mind, you were featured recently in a CE Pro write-up, which I will include a link to in our show notes, and I would encourage our listeners to go check out. One of the things that jumped out at me in that article was that you quoted an average installation price of $35,000. Now, that's a big number, and especially when your business model on the surface at least seems to be built primarily on lower price products, and so clearly there is a leap being made there, and I'm curious if you could just talk about how do you get there? How do you get to an average install price of $35,000 when you're so focused at least at the at the front end on consumer type products?
All right, so that's a really good question. It's there's a couple of things that I think I need to point out to you guys as well as the industry, whoever's listening here, is that if you guys don't change, you're gonna die. It's just as simple as that. I mean, to try to fight Apple and Google and some of these big companies and these products that the customers want, and say, no, those are not, because the margin's not right, or because you're not, just as, good luck trying to fight that. If you want to stay in the top 1% of 1% of 1% and stay there and compete with everyone else for that, be my guest. But at the end of the day, this is where the whole industry is going. And I'm trying to we've become more of a service business as opposed to a hardware business. We're not selling black boxes anymore. we're going minimalist, and it's working. And what we've done is we've raised our labor rates. We add more hours in, because we have to make up for the loss of margin and some of the product. The customers, still have a net gain because they're not paying as much as they used to. They have less service calls, and they're happier. So it's working out. Now, how do we get to 35,000? So we're offering, as an example, a majority of those numbers are coming from these high rises. These high rises are, again, $1.5 million and up units. $35,000 is what they pay for a couch. So
fair point.
So we're offering, and this is not. I have to tell you, this is not, that number 35,000 is not including shades, and it's not including the TVs, because we're selling these packages anywhere from 1.5 years to 6 months before they even close on the units. And so we don't know what model TVs are going to be out and the pricing of those TVs. So we even leave that out of the budget. So the actual budget is closer to $50,000 or $60,000 than it is 35. 35 is a Sonos, and it's not even surround sound because, we have concrete ceilings. We have no place to put the rears. So it's a Savant Play Bar. I'll be specific. It's a Savant Play Bar, a Leon TC Fit, an articulating mount, typically from Future Automation, because we love their mounts. They're crazy prices, but they just do the job. And when people see them, they fall in love with them. Can you fall in love with the mount? Well, the answer is yes. When they can move an 85-inch TV, with one hand, the lady of the home can move it, with one hand and pull it out. They're like, it's unbelievable. When they come into my showroom and they see this 85-inch TV and they can pull it out with one hand, and they can see, like, they don't have to get down on their hands and knees into the cabinet and pull out to reboot their, cable box or their modem. They're like, it's like you could see the light go off in their eyes. It's amazing. And they're like, whatever it takes, So right there, you're talking, I don't know, $3-4 grand just for that little setup and the subwoofer. Then we sell them a Savant remote. At the time it was remote kit. The remote kit is now morphing into Blueprint, into the Pro. So that's another $750 plus programming. And where most integrators are charging anywhere from 25 to 30% of hardware for labor, we're almost 1 for 1. So if the hardware is $5,000, we're charging $5,000 for installation. So we're doing a living room, we're doing a master bedroom, we're doing a couple of spare, guest bedrooms. We're doing a iPad on the wall with an iPort, either launch port or even better yet, a surface mount with buttons. We're doing a Savant Pro processor in a lot of these homes, so they can have one app. So this is another story, right? We assumed 3 years ago when Apple announced HomeKit that Apple would be able to control these devices from their native app. Well, that never really materialized. And also Nest stopped really introducing new product, and everything kind of slowed down. I mean, we don't see any new products, it seems to me, that are as popular as those ones 3 years ago. So we've kind of gone a little bit back to an integration model, but we're putting speakers in the master bathroom with a Sonos amp. We're putting in, so every zone of music is $1,500 to $1,800. Okay, using Sonos and a pair of in-ceiling speakers. So you're talking about 4 zones of music in a house. You're talking about 2 pretty sophisticated Sonos systems. I call it 3.1. You're talking about Savant remote control, and then you add in a Lutron lighting system and radio rod lighting system, which is about $10,000 to $12,000. And then that brings you to $35,000. And then you add shades, and it's another $12,000 to $15,000 or more, or $20,000, depending on the size of the unit. That's how you get to $35,000 and $50,000. Project management, we charge 10% of the overall job for project management, including labor. So if the product is 25 and the labor is typically around 18 to 20, we're charging $4,000 for project management.
Right. And I think it's interesting. I mean, the fact that you're able to charge a 1-for-1 labor ratio, and your clients are really still coming out on the positive end, probably versus a traditional integrator, because some of the hardware choices you're making, and you've alluded to it a couple of times, you're really focused on designing systems that are as reliable as possible for clear reasons. You want the customer experience to be good, and obviously you want to eliminate as many of the service callbacks as you can. I noticed, and when we've talked, and I also, going back to that CE Pro article one more time, one other thing that jumped out at me is that it sounds like, have a hard kind of rule against doing any sort of video distribution. I also noticed AV receivers and DVD players. So elaborate on that a little bit, just generally your decision to, ignore certain categories or certain product types and what some of the pros and cons are of that.
That's right. There's been no cons whatsoever. So video distribution in my mind has been dead for 2 years. Okay. I mean, why anyone would do video distribution, it just is beyond me. I mean, starting with DirecTV back, I don't know how many years ago was it, like, it's got to be 7 or 8 years ago when they had the Genie system come out, where you can network all your boxes and you can access your DVR from any TV in the house, right? So what was the other reason for it? Okay, so you had a DVD player. Well, a DVD player was $120. So the problem was you would have DVDs all over the house. So, okay, so is it worth it but where would you watch DVDs? In like 2 rooms in the house, okay? So to me, with streaming video and an Apple TV behind every TV, not only do I get streaming, and I have access to all of my library of my music and movies and any TV I want for $150, but I can do AirPlay, which is friggin' awesome, because customers love that, and I'm saving $20,000 and all the headaches. I mean, balance and HD video over, CAT and having balance on either end, that if you have a surge, God forbid, they go down and you have to take the TV off the wall. I mean, it's just headache after headache in my mind, and just didn't make sense.
I don't think people outside of Florida realize how much we hate balance here.
Right.
The lightning strike capital of the world
Exactly.
tends to eat balance left and right.
Yeah.
I've had so many go bad.
So, it was a no-brainer, and I understand why the industry wants to stay with it, because, there is a cool factor to it. There's certainly a margin, and it's a big-ticket item. But you're doing your customer a disservice. You're not being their advocate, because we all know that it's dead, but we're trying to keep it on life preserved because we want to keep our margins and we want to be relevant. But that's not the way you're going to be relevant. The way you're relevant is by truly looking out for your customer's best interest and steering them away from that, because they will stick to you like glue. If they feel like you have really been behind them and that you're really looking out for them, there's nothing that they won't do for you. They'll refer you to everybody. They'll give you more business. I mean, you can write your own ticket. So nobody, including you guys, have not explained to me where video distribution makes any sense. As far as receivers and black boxes in general, I mean, it's another disaster. I mean, with Sonos, and look, it took me a while to adopt Sonos, because for the longest time, including up till now, it's really a one-trick pony, right? I mean, we're integrators. We're home automation specialists. We want one remote control that does everything. Sonos never played nicely in the sandbox. It was its own sort of separate little world. And so I resisted it for that reason, even though I thought it was pretty cool. But now they integrate to a small extent. But at the end of the day, the customer experience is second to none. And I want them to associate me with that experience. And so, we now use, and quite honestly, if I do a side-by-side comparison with Sonos and one of the better surround sound systems, people are hard-pressed. But the advantages are so great. They don't have to have furniture underneath their TV. They don't have to have a rack. They don't have to have all of these different settings that they have. How many times have you been called to someone's house? I don't have, my rears are not working. I never hear anything out of my in-ceiling rears, because they hit the wrong button, right? I mean, it's like,
yeah.
So now with Sonos, not only that, the customer can go in and they actually can increase the rear surrounds to any degree he wants, right from his own app.
Right. And you can walk it through over the phone.
Exactly.
It doesn't involve them climbing into a cabinet and looking at this receiver with buttons on it that even the most seasoned integrator can't figure out what they actually do.
Exactly. And how many?
I don't know whether what is cathedral mode in Munich mean?
And jazz setting, and exactly. Like come on.
Jazz mode. Yeah.
I mean, so it didn't make sense. Stadium mode. I mean, you have reverb. I mean, like, big deal. Like that's not what they would use. So, and we were having problems with HDMI output or inputs on these things. They'd fail. The cards would fail. And quite often, quite honestly, I mean, just more often than you would think something of that quality would, from these major manufacturers would have. So it was just another pain point that I tried to eliminate. And again, when a customer sees that I've got 2 devices behind his TV, they've asked me for DVD players. I said no. I tell them straight up no. They're like, what do you mean no? I'm like, because this is the problem. Nowadays the DVD players are such junk. I mean, they're so cheaply made. You don't even have an LED on the front to know whether it's on or off. You don't know what state you're in at all. So unless they have a big collection of DVDs, and then I talk to them, look, you're going to upgrade to streaming anyway. If you want to spend, instead of spending another gazillion dollars to upgrade your collection to either HD or to 4K, just get it streaming. You'll pay less money. You'll have it access to anywhere from Colorado to New York to Florida. You put a $150 Apple TV and you have access to your whole library. Like, what are you kidding me?
Right.
It's not even funny.
Right.
So.
And I hear this. I mean, the conversation we're having keeps revolving back to service and what we're doing to service the clients. I know a big conversation Jason and I have had for the last, it's probably been a year now, is this RSM type systems like iHegie, Oversee, and Krika. Are you guys using anything like that in the field right now?
Definitely. I mean, look, Snap AV, I think, along with iHummingbird, if I'm to be so bold, has changed our industry. Snap AV is just, I mean, I look at that company, I'm thinking to myself, I knew where they were 10 years ago and where they are now. And I just cannot believe how well they've done. And they've done it around service. It's not about their product. Their product happens to be great, but their service is exceptional. And the fact that you can have one company under one umbrella that you can call and get extra tech support and, shipping and ordering, it's all about, for us, it's all about ease of doing business, right? Ease of business from the customer to us and from us to our manufacturers and distributors. So what happens is we went with Oversee. We've tried iHegie. We've looked at some of the other ones, Domots and others. But, we want to keep things as simple as possible, and Oversee is what we've gone with. We don't think Oversee is ready yet for us to deploy in terms of being able to have customers pay for an RSM or RMR. But we believe they're going to get there ahead of anyone else, or will, iHegie right now is probably the leader in the field. And I've known iHegie and Mike Mancuso since he lived in West Palm Beach. So it's like, 12 years ago or something like that when he started iHegie. I think it was 2008 or 2009, something like that. And Simple Solutions was one of the first companies he came to talk about it. And we brought it in and we used it. But at the time, there was nothing you could do with it. You could basically see what was on the network, but you couldn't reboot anything. You couldn't do anything. Now it's different. Now they've got more, more functionality. But again, Oversee, we think, is they're not there yet, but we think they're going to supersede or, go beyond anyone else. They've got a lot of backing, great company. And we do see a value there. We do see a value in having that, but not yet.
Got it. And you're referring, presumably to Oversee Pro. Obviously, they've got Oversee, their platform that's been built into power conditioners for quite a while and does a lot. But yeah, Oversee Pro is the next step in that.
Correct.
And I think I would tend to agree. Probably has a little bit of work to do. We had Kenny Kim on from Oversee a while ago, and he even admitted as much on the air. Said that he is, that they're kind of playing catch up, but they feel pretty good about where they're at. And I would never bet against Snap AV given what they've been able to do in our industry.
Correct. But you're right. The Wattbox, I'll tell you, the Wattbox and having that ability to remotely turn on and off devices. Of course, it's been around for a long time, but to have it from Snap AV and have it very reliable, and it is, has been really cool for us. We really enjoy that, being able to reboot stuff, both even in our own house, in our own showroom, to be able to reset things remotely. So that's been a really popular product. But yeah, Pro is where eventually we're doing Pro right now. We're doing it in every home, but we needed to have more functionality. Got it.
Well, you hit on something there when you were talking about Snap AV, and it's actually a concept I've been thinking a lot about recently. I did a piece not too long ago for Residential Systems, which was just basically talking about, if we want to succeed as integrators and home technology professionals, it's not necessarily about wowing our clients or blowing their socks off, but it's just about not making their life more difficult and making doing business with us as easy as possible. And I think that that's one of the central themes I've heard you come back to over and over again when you're talking about iHummingbird. And as we wind down on our time here, would love you to just hit on that high level and just talk about, how important do you feel it is for other companies in our industry, or our industry as a whole, in other words, to start thinking about ways that we can make the smart home more approachable, more reliable, and just sort of elevate that overall customer experience?
Well, I hope I can touch on that a little bit. But there is definitely one thought that I want to leave in your audience's mind, and that is our industry has to consolidate. There's no way that individual integrators will be able to survive going forward. And we're going to have to compete with the big national companies, with the big, Home Depots and Amazons, and quite honestly, even with like Enjoy and Hello Tech. So the only way to do that is by branding yourself, joining forces with other integrators, creating a single brand, and using your resources and not having 3 or 4 or 8 different back ends and 8 salespeople and then competing with each other in the same market. So your audience is primarily integrators, and I think if there's one thing that they should take away from this is try to keep things simple for their customers as possible. Go with the momentum. Don't fight the momentum. Try to develop alliances and even preferably merge together to perform one brand in a market that allows you to have a single message that gets out to your customers and helps you to run more efficiently. And that's what we're trying to do. It's been really hard to get independent integrators to sort of give up the control, to some extent, even though their lives will be better and they'll make more money and be more successful, which is what we all want at the end of the day. But, I can't express how important that is and it's going to happen one way or the other. They're either going to go out of business and have to go and work for somebody else because they don't have a job anymore, or they can be proactive and seek those alliances and create the mergers and create a stronger entity that moves forward and is allowed, will be able to compete with the Amazons, because the real key to us is the touch factor. We do not have any kind of voice automation here from our answering system. All of our people, there's no windows. We set a time to meet with the customer. We meet with them. We don't allow right now our website. You cannot set up an appointment on our website. And there's a reason for that. And that is because we believe that what makes us different than Amazon and makes us different than, all these other national companies that are trying to provide services, there's a personal touch. And I think there's a huge market for that personal touch, both before, during, and after the sale. And if you keep that in mind, that will help you to grow and differentiate yourself.
All right. Well, that's great advice, Richard. Once again, we really appreciate you taking the time to come on and join us. If anybody is listening and wanted to personally connect with you and maybe follow up, ask a question or two, what would be the best way for them to do that?
They can email me at richard@iHummingbird.net. That's my email address. They can go to the website and send us a message from there. I hope I've shown that I'm pretty open. What I want people to understand is that we're all in this together. I don't believe that I do anything that's proprietary, that's unique in the sense of being able to, protect it. And I have no desire to protect what we're doing. I think the more people that get the concept of what iHummingbird is doing, and joins with us to try to present that to the customer, I think the better we'll all be. We have to compete with these online companies and these big national companies, and the only way to do that is with that personal touch. And I look forward to talking to people in our industry. The people from the article at CE Pro have been calling up from all over the country and asking me about what we're doing, and I'm excited about where we as a company, as iHummingbird, are going. But quite honestly, I need those guys' help. I need to, I want some of those guys who see the vision to join iHummingbird and move forward together, with that brand and with that vision and concept, but with their talent and their entrepreneurial spirit and their passion, and sometime at some point to be able to actually sell the company, retire, sell the company to someone who can take it national, or it's just not enough to be able to just work every single day, and if you stop working, you stop earning. That whole concept is, we all work too hard and we're too talented to just have that be our future.
Well, man, I hate to like wrap up here, but man, I could talk to you about this for another 3 hours here. This is good stuff. But definitely thank you for coming on the show and sharing the story of iHummingbird and your background and everything with us. Really do appreciate it. And thanks for making the time for us.
It was a real pleasure, guys. I love listening to your show. I listen to it every week. I think you guys are doing a great service. And I'd like you guys to come join iHummingbird. How's that?
Well, we appreciate it, Richard. We enjoyed the conversation, and definitely will stay in touch. We look forward to reconnecting again with you very soon.
Thank you, guys. Thanks, Seth. Thank you, Jason. Have a great night.